Exactly 70 years ago, the message we shall be presenting to you was formally unveiled for the first time. That unveiling was done in what was then British India, in a small town named Uravakonda, in what was then called Madras Presidency. And the one who revealed the message was a small 14-year-old boy named Sathya Raju. Earlier that morning, Sathya left for school as usual, carrying his bag, complete with books and notebooks. However, after going some distance, he returned, flung his bag aside and announced to his startled elder brother and sister-in-law that he was no longer their Sathya and that he was leaving home, family and school for good in order to serve humanity. Leaving his brother in a sort of shell-shocked condition, Sathya then went to a nearby garden and sat on a rock there while a small crowd gathered. After a while, Sathya led the crowd with a small bhajan that we all know, and which of course has not only become justly famous, but also marks the curtain raiser on the Sri Sathya Sai avatar, the incarnation of the divine in this Kali age. All that happened on 20th October 1940. To appreciate the significance of that event, we need to go way back to the year 1926, to the small and little-known hamlet called Puttaparthi. Here in this house in Puttaparthi, in the early hours of 23rd November 1926, was born a little boy, the same boy whom we saw earlier. This boy, whose full name was Sathya Raju, was the grandson of one Kondama Raju. His father was Pedda Venkama Raju, while his mother bore the name Ishwaramma. The Rajus were no doubt poor, but their moral stature was so high that all of them, Patriarch Kondama Raju in particular, commanded great respect amongst everyone in the village, both the rich and the poor. It was clear right from birth that there was something most unusual and extraordinary about young Sathya. In age and size, he was just another boy, but in all other respects, he was different. He was mature, far beyond his age, and had a mystical and divine aura about him. Particularly noteworthy was his deep sense of compassion. Poor though his family was, he would readily serve food to the hungry. When his mother said that they barely had enough food for the family, Sathya would reply that when the beggar ate, it was the same as him eating the food. Understandably, Ishwaramma was baffled, but she began to sense that Sathya was different. As a young lad, Sathya gathered boys like himself and formed a bhajan group that not only became the talk of the town, but also evoked great admiration amongst the villagers. Soon it was time to go to school, and since there was no school in the Puttaparthi of those days, Sathya first attended school in the neighboring village Bukkapatnam, having to walk several kilometers every day. Sathya proved to be such a brilliant student that his elder brother, Seshamma Raju, insisted that young Sathya come with him to a town called Kamalapuram to study in the school where Seshamma was receiving training to be a teacher. And so Sathya went to Kamalapuram to stay with his brother and study in the school there. Life in Kamalapuram was hard, with young Sathya being burdened heavily with a lot of household work. His daily chore included bringing drinking water from a distant well, which was the only well that supplied potable water. As in Bukkapatnam, Sathya excelled in school, becoming the favorite of both teachers and students as well. In a few years, once Seshamaraju completed his training in Kamalapuram, he moved to Uravakonda to join in the high school there as a teacher. And he took Sathya along with him. Once again, Sathya excelled in school. But early in 1940, he suddenly began to act as if he had lost interest in studies. One thing led to another. And finally, as we saw earlier, on 20th of October 1940, he declared that the world was his home, that humanity was henceforth his family, and that his entire life would henceforth be dedicated to the service of humanity. When news of this reached his parents back home, they both were shocked and rushed immediately to Uravakonda to plead with Sathya to change his mind. That, of course, Sathya declined to do. But he did agree to return to Puttaparthi and further gave Mother Ishwaramma the word that Puttaparthi would be the permanent headquarters for his mission. Despite its remoteness, news about a saintly boy with miraculous powers quickly spread, and slowly but surely, people came from many places to Puttaparthi to have his darshan. There being no space for this in the house in which he was born, for a while, Swami used the adjacent building, which was the residence of his neighbor Karnam Subbamma, who was almost his second mother. It soon became necessary to have a separate accommodation, which was set up in a piece of land donated by Karnam Subbamma. Thus came into existence the famous Pata Mandiram, or the Old Mandir. Many other remarkable leelas or miracles that Baba performed during this phase of his avatarhood. Typically, these experiences were given to devotees in the evening, when he took them out to the sands of the Chitravati river for an extended bhajan and chat session. Not many had the good fortune of seeing them, but among the blessed few who did, some have recorded for posterity what they saw. One such is Mrs. Vijaya Kumari, who at the time she witnessed these incredible leelas of God was a young girl. Those leelas made a deep impression on her. And even now, 60 years later, she is able to relive every single one of those precious moments. Here is Mrs. Vijay Kumari's description of a truly awe-inspiring leela that she witnessed during the Pata Mandiram days. One day in 1947, we went with Swami to the Chitravati river. All of a sudden, he disappeared from our midst. We then heard his voice which said, "I am here on the hill, and I am going to now show you all Surya Darshan, the vision of God as Sun." We began to wonder. It is past 6 in the evening and the sun has already set. And now Swami is saying he would show us the sun. That was when we began to laugh. Just then we began to see a pink light behind Swami. Quickly pink turned into red and we began to feel very hot. The heat made us sweat profusely and was unbearable. At the same time, the scene we saw was beautiful, indeed beyond description. Finding the heat unbearable, we loudly complained, "Swami, it is too hot." He replied, "Is that so?" And then slowly the heat began to decrease when Swami suddenly announced, "I am now going to show you the moon." Even as he uttered those words, the sky behind him gradually began to turn silvery white, and the air started to cool rapidly. Soon we began to feel very cold and started shivering. Our teeth began to chatter and we screamed, "Swami, it is too cold!" Taking pity on us, Swami made the chill disappear, after which he said, "I am now going to show all of you the third eye. Watch carefully and don't look here and there." As we stood there watching his full form, we suddenly saw only his face, huge in size, filling the entire sky. Even as we were watching all this with awe and wonder, an orifice appeared in between his eyebrows, from which flew giant sparks and huge flames. Instead of being lost to this extraordinary spectacle of divine glory, we now became very worried and anxious as we could see only Swami's face. We began to wonder, what has happened to Swami's body? Have the flames harmed Swami? That was the thought uppermost in our minds. Meanwhile, many people fell down and some even fainted, but I did not realize it then. Suddenly, in a flash, the entire spectacle came to an abrupt end. The sky was back to normal as if nothing had ever happened, while Swami was with us on the Chitravati sands. He then asked why some people had fallen down. We said that we did not know the reason. Swami then created sacred ash or vibhuti and applied it to everyone's forehead. Having done that, he said, "Come on, let us return to the mandir." We started walking back, but most of us were quite unsteady and wobbling. Back in the mandir, with much love, Swami said, "Today I have granted you the blessing of Trinetra Darshan, the vision of the third eye, for which you all have been pining in many previous births. What I have shown you is not even 1,000th of the full glory. And what little I showed made many of you to fall down, unable to bear the power of that sight." That was when some kind of normalcy started returning amongst us.